One of the biggest problems that we're having is that the world is changing so fast, most people don't even know what to do with themselves. The level of change and the speed of it is difficult to comprehend, especially when you're living through it, right? Until you sit down and actually think about what technologically and socially has changed over the past 40 and 50 years. And then think about what you were taught about tradition and family values and rules and norms that is coming from people that were born in the 60s and the 70s, you know, and maybe even early 80s, and how they miss much of the change that's happening, that their rules and norms and ideas of what's right, air quotes on what's right, don't apply. It doesn't even work for them. Why am I saying that? You know, there's a quote that says the general is always fighting the last war. And it's understandable because you've formed your opinions about the world, your opinions about different races, about different sex, the opposite sex, excuse me. And so you think you kind of have a gist of what's going on, not really counting the day-to-day changes that are changing those things, right? And so you get to a place where you attempt to pass that wisdom on to your children, and maybe you're so far removed from it that you have no idea how far removed from it you are. We see this oftentimes in some of these spaces about relationships, some of these spaces that talk about leveling up, a lot of these spaces that preach aspirationalism. A lot of people are woefully ignorant, and I use the word ignorant by the dictionary definition. They're woefully ignorant to what's going on, how much change is happening, and how it's affecting us socially. Once again, for those of you that don't know, marriage in America is at a 150-year low. The people that are getting married, let's go through the numbers. 26% of poor people are married in America. This is according to the American Enterprise Institute. Once again, 26% of poor Americans are married, 39% of middle class, and 56% of upper middle class and above. That was pre-COVID. Those numbers probably look worse and are more dire now in 2021. We know that the housing market shot up 20% in 1 year. Right now, the median house is being sold for $341,000. It's recommended that you have 20% down for your home. The private industry is snapping up as many houses as they possibly can because their goal is to continue to have these homes on the renters market indefinitely. And you think about that when you think about the world your, let's say, 35 and younger people are entering. You're 30 and younger, you're 25 and younger, you're 20 and younger, right? You think about your children and what you told them about college and going to school for something tangible, something that's going to get them at the least stable and at the most is going to make them prosperous. You think about some of the things that we were told about being an entrepreneur. Even before COVID, so pre-COVID, entrepreneurialism was at a 40-year low. Many of your favorite YouTubers don't tell you that because they don't even know. Believe it or not, they don't even know. And if they do know, they'll chalk it off to, millennials being lazy and whatnot. But if I say 40-year low and we're in 2021, then that means that this has been a trend since the 1980s. Millennials were being born in the 1980s. Generation X were barely 10 and 12 years old in the 1980s, right? So that means that this trend actually started with baby boomers. And that's not a slight against baby boomers, but it is to say you have to acknowledge the economic realities of this society, of this country, right? So baby boomers got screwed, and I think they still don't realize how much they got screwed. Xers definitely got screwed, and now millennials are getting screwed. But what we've done in this society is say that the problem is millennials rather spend their money on avocado toast. Xers rather spend their money on Jordans. And the issue is that's why young people, and when I say young, I'm really saying under the age of 50, under the age of 45, young people aren't starting businesses, aren't investing. Have we ever considered that it's really because young people don't have it? You know, the median income in America is something like $31,000 a year. The median income for men in America is 38,000, something like that a year. This is what increasing inflation every year, right? Young people don't have it like that. Young people aren't buying cars. They're not buying homes, right? They're not getting married. They're not having children. They're having less sex, less sexual partners. This is just a random rant to kind of let people know the situation you're living in. So be careful about who's telling you and who's giving you advice, right? Because oftentimes they're giving you this old spun wisdom, and they're tapping into some of the things they were told and things that they actually saw work maybe in the 80s and the 70s, right? But those things may not work now. For some it will, for many it won't, because the world is changing. And some of these rules definitely did apply when you had a certain structure in place. But now that we're living through this, what I would like to call this weird transition period between what was and what will be. First of all, human beings are constantly transitioning, and we're constantly evolving, and things are constantly changing. But this level of change and how rapidly it's happening, I don't think many people can grasp it. So they're attempting to hold on to tradition while the world pushes them into modernity. And as you can see, the cognitive dissonance is all around you. It's around you with men, it's around you with women, it's around you with younger people who have been told these things from older people, from their elders, and it's around you from the elders who can't even fathom how much change is happening while they hold on to their cell phone with a glass screen. And they drive their 2020, 2019, 2021 Benz that can parallel park itself and has backup cameras and navigation, right? You can see the technological change. That's what I'm getting at. But many of us don't understand how much the technological change has brought about a social change. How much automation has eaten into well and stable paying jobs. How the crushing of unions has helped to strip stable jobs, right? How the media and its portrayal of stability was actually lightweight opulence, lightweight upper middle class living. And then that translated to young people. And when I say young people, I'm talking about people that's about 45 and younger now. But at the time in the 80s and the 90s, they were young people. This translated into them thinking middle class was actually upper middle class. And now those young people who are in the dating market and the marriage market have an unrealistic view of what stability is. We're not talking about doing extremely well for yourself or even nicely well for yourself. We're talking about like the bare bones of stability. You're doing okay. You can maybe even afford a nice home. You can afford a okay new car. Many of us do not take into account where we got these ideas of that from, right? What you've been told middle class is through depictions on the media, it actually isn't. That lifestyle was actually a step or two, a standard deviation or two above what actual middle class is and what actual stability is. And that's why when you ask the young people, what does it take to be stable? They give you a number. That's maybe a 10, 20, $30,000 above what we actually consider the beginning of middle class. The beginning of middle class, for the most part, is about $40,000 a year. If you and your spouse both make 40, you can somewhat make it work in America financially. When you ask many young people what they think is the median income, let's say, of men in America, oftentimes they will shoot out a number like 75,000, which is fully $35,000 more than the entry. Why is Mr. Z giving this random rant? Once again, the world has changed so much that even the people that are living through the change can't comprehend it. And so we've been aided in our delusion about what the world is. And that aiding in that the society aiding in that delusion, with us actually being delusional, is causing young people, once again, to not get married, not have children, have less sexual partners, have less sex. Some of these things we see as a good thing for some of us in this space, right? But it really isn't. It's a good thing on the surface. Because then when we ask why these people aren't having sex, you realize there's a whole level of resentment and anger and rage that comes along with it. Because it's essentially them throwing an adult temper tantrum for the world not being the way they want it to be. Young people aren't having sex, specifically young women, because they're throwing a temper tantrum. It's an adult temper tantrum that the world doesn't function the way they were told it was going to function. That they're not getting the things that they were subtly suggested to young people, that if you do this and you acquire this and you go about life this route and you stay disciplined, then for the most part, these will be your rewards in this society. And what we're finding is, for the masses of people, that's not the case. And so young people are somewhat paralyzed in what to do next. When you have a bachelor's degree and you make $35,000, maybe even $40,000 a year, but you have student loan debt of $60,000. Right? What do you do then? What do you do even if you make $50,000, but then you have student loan debt of upwards of six figures, $120,000 student loan debt? And then the society is telling you to buy a home. How? The society is asking you, why are you Ubering everywhere? Or why do you have an entry-level Toyota or Nissan or Ford instead of having something nicer? You're not contributing to the economy properly. Right? So once again, the change is happening. I'll end it here. Change is happening. Many of your leaders, your thought leaders, your senseis and gurus in this internet space, they don't see it, or they don't care, because they have an agenda to speak about certain topics a certain way. And so they do not care, nor do they know what's going on. Right? If I have a channel, a YouTube channel, and I want to just talk about a segment of black people living this type of lifestyle, being provided for this type of way, living the luxurious lifestyle, being provided for by men this type of way, and I want to talk about a certain skin tone, then I don't care what's going on outside of that. Even the things that are going on outside of that affect directly what my message, air quotes on message, what my message is. And that's what we find happening more and more in this YouTube space. People are being very myopic, and they're pushing a particular message. And then when their followers come out into the real world and attempt to find those things or do those things or live that life, they're running into the brick wall of what the world actually is right now. The change that's happening on the planet right now. And your sensei, and your guru, and your thought leader either did not factor that in, or they did factor it in, but they don't talk about it. They don't care. It's a I want this. I want my subscribers, my followers to have this, and that's all I'm going to talk about in a very narrow bubble. And I'll end with that, y'all. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. I know I ranted, and I'm just going to call this a random rant. I know I ranted, but y'all let me know what y'all think about this change that's happening on the planet, and how it's affecting many millennials, let's say Xers 50 years old and younger, and Generation Z that's 18 to 25 years old right now. And if you fit into one of those categories, one of those age groups, please let me know what your experience has been. Just for those of you that are older, closer to 50, let me know what you've been experiencing for the past, 30 years of adulthood. For those of you that are millennials, let me know what you've been experiencing. And for those of you that are Generation Z, that are closer to the age of 25 or that are 25, y'all let me know what y'all have been experiencing over the past, 6 or 7 years of adulthood. And I'll end it right there. All right, y'all.